J.K. Rowling might have just saved all of us from being sent to a Scottish gulag. She's a staunch defender of women's rights. I mean the original style of women, like her, not the new version of women, like me. So, she's a fierce critic of Scotland's ridiculous Hate Crime Act, which came into power on April the 1st. This law is widely seen to have been pushed through to allow Scotland's ruling party, the Scottish Nationalist Party, to muzzle anyone who criticises them, especially over their gender ideology. The SNP support self-ID, which allows people to identify as whatever gender they want. So, if I want to be a woman, I just say I'm a woman and ping, magic, I'm a particularly stunning and brave woman. I don't even need to wear the underwear. I mean, I don't need to wear it, but I do like the feel of satin on my lady balls. Self-ID sounds all nice and inclusive, letting people be their authentic selves. But these inclusive rules were immediately used by male rapists to be included in women's prisons, and by other men to be included in women's changing rooms. It turned out that letting people be their authentic selves isn't great because a lot of people are authentically wrong-uns. The Hate Crime Act is a really vaguely worded law, giving the police and judges a lot of leeway in how they interpret it, so it's very important to see how it's applied. This will set the precedent for future cases, and this is where J.K. Rowling took a bullet for us. A person commits an offence under this act if they communicate material or behave in a manner that a reasonable person would consider to be threatening or abusive with the intention of stirring up hatred based on the protected characteristics such as sexual orientation or gender identity. There doesn't need to be a victim or any evidence, just the perception in a witness's mind that someone is abusive and motivated by ill will. And there's no protection for speech in your own home. So if your kid doesn't get a second portion of ice cream, they can go into school and denounce you for something you said over the dinner table. Hey, this system worked great in the Chinese Cultural Revolution. The creator of this law, Scottish leader Humza Yousaf, protests that there's a high bar to be prosecuted under it. I mean, for a start, you have to be one of his enemies. He says a reasonable person would have to find you to be abusive or insulting. But where are you going to get a reasonable person in Scotland in 2024? And Scotland is a country built on being abusive and insulting as a form of affection. It would be like criminalising passive-aggressive politeness in England. And there's plenty of precedent for people being investigated and recorded by the police as committing a non-crime hate incident. Yeah, the police now busy themselves with non-crimes, apparently. Scottish politician Murdo Fraser was recorded as committing one of these non-offences when he said that identifying as non-binary was like identifying as a cat, which isn't a good analogy. Cats are real, whereas non-binary is a made-up thing ugly fat people say to try and make themselves look interesting. These non-crime hate incidents are serious too. Maybe not for J.K. Rowling, but for regular plebs like us. These could ruin our lives. They're searchable in background checks when you apply for a job. So good luck trying to feed and house your family if you've ever liked a tweet that Humza Yousaf doesn't approve of. J.K. Rowling's challenge to the law came in this tweet thread listing various prominent transgender women, or people who call themselves transgender women, which is actually the same thing if you think about it. Scotland's Hate Crime Act comes into effect today. Women gain no additional protections, of course, but well-known trans activist Beth Douglas, darling of prominent Scottish politicians, falls within a protected category. Lovely Scottish lass and convicted double rapist Isla Bryson found her true authentic female self shortly before she was due to be sentenced. Misgendering is hate, so respect Isla's pronouns please. Love the leggings. Fragile flower Katie Dulatowski, 6'5", was rightly sent to a women's prison in Scotland after a conviction. This ensured she was protected from violent predatory men, unlike the 10-year-old that Katie sexually assaulted in a women's public bathroom. Samantha Norris was cleared of exposing her penis to two 11-year-old girls. Hooray! Unfortunately, she was then convicted for possession of 16,000 images of children being raped and sexually assaulted. Be that as it may, Sam's still a lady to me. Scottish woman and butcher Amy George abducted an 11-year-old girl while dressed in female clothing. No idea why this was mentioned in court. Of course she was wearing women's clothing. She's a woman. Amy took the girl home and sexually abused her over a 27-hour period. But most women aren't axe-toters or sex offenders, so let's talk role models. Julia Valentino in Red wanted to play on the women's team because of sisterhood, validation and political visibility. Naturally, she was given some boring cis girl's place. Yay for inclusion! Mridul Wadhwa, head of a Scottish rape crisis centre, says sexual violence happens to bigoted people as well. She has no gender recognition certificate, but was still appointed to a job advertised for women only. Time to be challenged on your prejudices, rape victims. Munro Bergdorf isn't just a pretty face, Public campaigner for a children's charity until safeguarding concerns were raised, she was appointed UN Women's first ever UK champion. What makes a woman has no definitive answer, says Monroe. Great choice, UN Women. Katie Neves has been appointed as the UN Women UK delegate. She switched from straight man to lesbian at the age of 48, and in a leaked 2022 webinar described how she used to enjoy stealing and wearing her sister's underwear. A truly relatable representative. Last but least, TV's India Willoughby proves we women can call a black broadcaster a nasty bitch who wouldn't be anywhere without woke. Dull lesbians men, insult the looks of a female Olympic swimmer, joke about kidnapping feminists, and still get airtime. What a gal. But it was all an April Fool's. J.K. Rowling said, "Only kidding. Obviously the women mentioned in the above tweets aren't women at all, but men, every last one of them. If what I've written here qualifies as an offence under the terms of the new Act, I look forward to being arrested when I return to the birthplace of the Scottish Enlightenment." The whole thread was very well put together and entertaining with a twist at the end. Honestly, J.K. Rowling could write for a living. Some people criticised J.K. They said that she's including regular trans women alongside sexual predators. But the whole point is that these sexual predators are being included in women's spaces, and it shows that these gender laws are bonkers and unworkable and genuinely dangerous for women. And Green Party politician Patrick Harvey, who was definitely bullied at school, so obviously loves a law that lets him run to teacher. Miss, J.K. Rowling said a bad word, miss. Accused J.K. Rowling of spurious performative nonsense, which is a bit rich coming from someone who tells you what their pronouns are. But the critics are wrong. J.K. Rowling genuinely put her neck on the line here. She could have been investigated or prosecuted. Lower profile people have been, such as Marion Miller, who's arrested for transphobic tweets. J.K. Rowling says that if they go after any woman for simply calling a man, I'll repeat that woman's words and they can charge us both at once. By forcing the hand of the authorities like this, J.K. Rowling has set a precedent. Now nobody can be arrested for similar misgendering. She's a hero. We need more celebrities like this with cast iron morals and ovaries of steel. And could J.K. Rowling mocking the Hate Crime Act lead to it being repealed? Well, the launch of the Hate Crime Act was a complete clown show. I mean, imagine launching a law that nobody knows if they've broken or not. Other similar SNP legislation was repealed, like the offensive songs at football law that tried to get Old Firm fans to sing nice songs to each other instead of whatever hilarious sectarian drunken nonsense they get into. And the Named Persons Act was repealed as well. It tried to make children the responsibility of the state instead of the responsibility of their parents. All communist parties want to destroy the family and make the state all-powerful and all-seeing. Logistically, this law has been a nightmare as well. Scottish police pledged to investigate every single complaint made under this law, but with upwards of 4,000 received already, they've had to pay overtime to process them all. And it won't stop there. Everyone will want to know if they've had an accusation made against them and if they've got a non-crime hate incident recorded against them. So the police will receive a deluge of data access requests under data protection laws that allow people the right to find out information held on themselves. It's going to get more expensive and the police are going to get more bogged down. And I hope this law gets repealed. I preferred my country when it was Scotland the Brave, not Scotland the Stunning and Brave. And ironically, J.K. Rowling didn't have the most complaints made against her. That honour went to the author of the Hate Crime Act, Humza Yousaf himself, for his anti-white rant. And the left-wing press have been trying to put their spin on it. According to The Guardian, neo-Nazis have been spamming the police with complaints. The Guardian seemed completely oblivious to the fact that the politicians putting people on lists and bringing through powers to silence political opponents, like the actual Nazis did, are the progressive politicians championed by The Guardian. And I've had plenty of messages from left-wing progressives threatening me with this new law, like this person who left a comment under my last video. Glad to see Scotland finally moving in the right direction. Little known fact, Scotland had the highest number of trans and non-binary people per capita in Europe. This new law is essential for their protection. I replied, well, if you think that giving the government the power to persecute whoever they want is going to protect anyone, you're ignorant of history. And they replied, Leo Kerrs, nope. And be careful what you say if you're in Scotland because I will report you. It's a new world. Get used to it. They seem balanced and reasonable. A new world indeed. Anyone who trusts the SNP and their supporters who use their Hate Crime Act wisely clearly hasn't met the SNP and their supporters. To play us out, here's the SNP's Alan Smith caught on camera threatening a woman with being put on a list.
I'm very keen to have a conversation, which is why I'm out here, which is why I'm glad you've come along.
Right.
And we'll be in Canvasbaron, so you're getting an email that will be coming by. You'll also get something through your door.
Okay.
And I'm keen to have a discussion, I am.
Yeah.
But the Twitter stuff doesn't help.
Why?
Because it looks obnoxious.
How does asking you when you're going to have an actual sit-down surgery look obnoxious?
Well, I'm afraid that your reputation does precede you. You're in our database as having been quite aggressive to previous canvassers.
Really?
I'm afraid you are.
I think maybe when you put facts forward and it doesn't kind of resonate. I'm not an aggressive person, but...
Okay, thanks for watching. Please share this video with a progressive communist who dresses their authoritarianism up in progressivism so that they can pretend that exerting power over people is just to keep marginalised people safe. And if you want to support me making these videos, consider signing up to my Patreon. You'll get Patreon-only content and early access to my next video, which is a deep dive into what the establishment gets wrong on immigration. Okay, thanks for listening. I've been Leo Cares. Bye. Bye-bye.